Hi guys, I am in front of my Honda ADV150 and my Honda PCX150. Which is the best delivery vehicle for you? Today in this video, we're going to explore both of these bikes and I'm going to show you which bike is best. This is a 2013 PCX150. This is a 2022 Honda ADV150. Of course, technology is much better on this. It's got better suspension and everything. And on this, you have a regular key, no keyless ignition. You have a terrible handbrake. You have a glove box that's terrible. And on this one, of course, everything is improved. You have keyless ignition, and you have a glove box that's easy to open. And I got it pretty well set up for delivery. And it's got much more suspension. It's also got a 2.1 gallon gas tank as opposed to the early 2013 PCX with a 1.6. What that means is that this thing is only capable about 140, 150 miles per tank, a little bit more, but before you run out of fuel. This one, I've gotten it up to 180 miles before I need it to fill up. And it does get better gas mileage. It's a newer model, of course, so you're going to get a little bit more fuel efficiency, but not much. So the big difference really is the suspension on it. Suspension is like 4 inches, which is really incredible for a scooter. And you have the keyless ignition on the Honda ADV, and on this, the suspension is so much nicer. Just like a lot of times I will park in a sidewalk. I don't want to take over an entire car space, so I'll park on the sidewalk, and then you have to jump over the curb or just kind of slowly go down, and then you have food up there. You have drinks and stuff. This one's much softer. 14-inch front wheel, 13 rear. This is like two 14-inch wheels, which makes it much nicer, I think. The tires are thinner, making it less rolling resistance. This with the 13-inch wheel, it's kind of hard to get, a huge selection of rubber for it. And it is much thicker. Both front and rear are thicker. The styling I love. I love the styling of the ADV150. It's got LEDs, everything. The headlights at night, if you do any deliveries at night, this is better. The stock windscreen is adjustable, but it's either down and up. With the stock windscreen, it is terrible. It is just not a very good windscreen, and they could have gotten as a little bit better windscreen stock, but that's something that I'll be doing, is changing that. Nice LED blinkers everywhere, LED headlight. Of course, this one also has ABS brakes. ABS in the front only. It's got a drum rear brake. Same thing with that one. Rear drum brake. No ABS, but it's got linked braking. On this, I find it less comfortable than the PCX. Of course, I'm comparing this old PCX to a new modern ADV. If you go and get the PCX150, you'll get ABS, you'll get the keyless ignition, you'll get a larger gas tank. So this one, in a way, is the early one, so it's not as comparable. But the one thing that you're going to find is that these PCXs, the reason I think these are actually better than the ADV is the low seat height and the low hump height. Now this hump height is what I refer to. And on this, they're both on the center stand, so they are high up. Like this one's high up, and I find myself rubbing the sides, rubbing this and that, and it's just a little bit harder to get in and off the bike. Remember, in food delivery, you are getting on and off the bike hundreds of times per day, so you are constantly getting on and off. The last thing I want is be rubbing this. And as the day goes by, you're doing those 12-hour days, this really gets in the way. So the hump is much higher up, and when you compare it to the PCX, it feels like a tiny little bicycle. The hump is low, It's easy to get in and out. The seat height is lower to the ground. When it comes to getting on and off the bike, much easier than this, and it does matter, but it's not like a real deal breaker. And here's another thing with food delivery. The bottom or the tail is higher up. I mean, just look at the size of those bags. The angle of this is slanted up. I don't know how. It's also because of my rack, but this one is almost horizontally mounted. And notice that I have a top loading box on the PCX. This one is the zipper one, because if I mounted this on this, I could not see how to put stuff in there because it's just so much higher up. When it comes to getting on and off the bike, much easier than this, and it does matter, but it's not like a real deal breaker. And here's another thing with food delivery. The bottom or the tail is higher up. I mean, just look at the size of those bags. The angle of this is slanted up. I don't know how. It's also because of my rack, but this one is almost horizontally mounted. And notice that I have a top loading box on the PCX. This one is the zipper one, because if I mounted this on this, I could not see how to put stuff in there because it's just so much higher up. So that's why I have it mounted on the PCX. But riding, this one is nicer as far as suspension, going over bumps, any holes, but I prefer the handling of the PCX. It's much more predictable with the 214s. I do not like the 13-inch rear on this. I think Honda made a mistake. They should not have put that. Just put 14s. I would rather have that. I think they did that just because of the shoei suspension, but I prefer like 14s. And even I think it looks better. It looks better with the 14-inch wheels as opposed to the weird 13 in the rear. It's just so strange. When it comes to the clocks, the PCX is definitely much older looking, but of course 2013. Then the tiny little computer that this has, in a way, this is a little strange because it's a tiny LCD with too much information in it, and some of the things don't make sense with the onboard MPG calculation. It seems like they would just try to make it too complex. The ADV150's ABS, you can see it right there. Brakes are really good on it. I'm very surprised that it brakes this good. If I didn't have my CRF 250, this would be a really nice forest road bike. And I think that's the flexibility of this, is that, yeah, you can like ride this off-road a little bit, do mild jumps. And here's another benefit of this. You can stand up on it and ride, and it doesn't feel like you're going to crash. On this, it does feel like very unstable standing up. It's not meant for it. You just sit so much lower compared to that, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. In a way, this one moves faster. It's slightly faster off the line. It's just everything about it feels like more planted, like firmer. It's a road bike as opposed to this, which feels more like a cushy SUV type of bike. So in closing, guys, both amazing bikes, but I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I do feel that the PCX is such a brilliant bike. This one, it's the ADV styling that everybody goes gaga over, but this, I like the scooter style. It's a little bit more bland. It doesn't stand out. And I imagine that the new PCXs are going to be so much better. I think this is, for a delivery vehicle, I do not think you can go wrong with this. 30,000 miles on it, and it's just so amazing. My favorite scooter thus far. I prefer this over this, and this is the bike that everybody wants. But this one, oh man, I think my goal is to sell this one and get the new PCX, because if this is as brilliant as it is, I can't imagine what the new one is. So guys, that's my thoughts on these two amazing scooters. Post up in the comments below what you think about them, and I'll see you in the next one.